The cargo ship drifted through the dead zone between star systems when the warning alarm started screaming. Tae-jin barely had time to look up from his navigation console before 3 massive warships appeared on his sensors. They were Kree-touch vessels, their hulls covered in sharp angles and weapons that glowed with angry red light. He tried to run. His small cargo hauler was fast, built for speed over firepower, but the Kree-touch ships were faster. They caught him in less than 5 minutes, their tractor beams locking onto his hull like iron chains. Tae-jin slammed his fists against the control panel, but it was useless. The ship wouldn't respond anymore. The Kree-touch warriors that boarded his ship looked like giant insects wearing armor. They had too many legs and eyes that reflected light in strange ways. They grabbed Tae-jin with their sharp limbs and dragged him through the corridors of their warship. He didn't fight. There were too many of them, and their claws looked like they could cut through steel. They brought him to a massive space station that floated in the void. It was shaped like a giant ring, spinning slowly with lights that pulsed red and orange. The Crimson Coliseum. Tae-jin had heard stories about this place in the bars on the edge of human space. Nothing good ever came from those stories. Inside, the station was even worse than he imagined. The corridors were stained with old blood that nobody had bothered to clean. Thousands of aliens packed the viewing galleries, all of them shouting and placing bets on screens that floated in the air. The noise was deafening. The Kree-touch guards threw him into a large chamber at the center of the station. The floor was polished black stone, and sitting on a throne made from the bones of various creatures was the arena master. His name was Velthun, and he looked like a nightmare come to life. His scales were dark green and covered in scars. His eyes were yellow with vertical slits. When he moved, his tail scraped against the floor with a sound like knives being sharpened. "Another human," Velthun said, his voice deep and rumbling. "How delightful. Your kind breaks so easily." Around the chamber, hundreds of aliens laughed. Tae-jin looked at them all, taking in the different species. There were things with tentacles, things with too many arms, things that floated in the air, and things that looked like walking rocks. All of them stared at him like he was already dead. "I run a simple establishment here," Velthun continued, standing up from his throne. He was massive, at least 3 meters tall. "Champions enter my arena. They fight, they die. We have maintained this tradition for 300 of your Earth years. Do you know how many survivors we have had in that time?" Tae-jin said nothing. His heart was pounding, but he kept his face calm. "0, Velthun said, showing his teeth in what might have been a smile. 847 matches. 0 survivors. My arena has a perfect record." The crowd roared with approval. Somewhere in the galleries, Tae-jin could see the betting screens updating. Numbers flashed past too quickly to read, but he understood the basic idea. They were betting on how long he would last. "The rules are simple," Velthun said, walking down from his throne. Each step he took made the floor shake slightly. 5 rounds. Each round you face creatures from the deadliest worlds in the galaxy. No weapons, no armor, no mercy. If you somehow survive all 5 rounds, you win your freedom and your ship back. Velthun leaned down until his face was level with Tae-jin's. His breath smelled like rotten meat. "But you won't survive. Humans never do. When you die screaming in my arena, your entire species will be marked as prey. Every ship, every colony, every human in the galaxy will know that your kind is weak." The chamber went quiet. Everyone was waiting to see what the human would do. Most prisoners begged at this point. Some cried. Some tried to fight and were killed on the spot. Tae-jin did none of those things. He looked up at the massive reptilian overlord and grinned. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that said he knew something Velthun didn't. "Challenge accepted," Tae-jin said quietly. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the entire chamber exploded with laughter. Aliens of every species howled and screeched and made whatever sounds they made when they found something funny. The betting screens went crazy, odds updating faster than before. Tae-jin caught a glimpse of the numbers, 10,000 to 1 against him, lasting even 5 minutes. Velthun stared at him for a long moment, then started laughing too. It was a terrible sound, like rocks grinding together. "Excellent. I was hoping you would have spirit. It makes the show so much better when they have hope at the beginning." He gestured to his guards. "Take him to the holding cells. Let him rest. I want him fresh for tomorrow's entertainment." The Kree-touch guards grabbed Tae-jin again and dragged him through more corridors. These ones were darker and smelled worse. They threw him into a small cell with metal walls and a force field door. The moment he hit the ground, the guards disappeared. Taijin sat up slowly, checking himself for injuries. Nothing serious. He looked around the cell. It was barely 3 meters across with a metal bench and nothing else. But there was a small ventilation grate near the ceiling, and through it he could hear sounds from other cells. "You're insane," a voice said from somewhere nearby. It was speaking Korean, which surprised Taijin. "Actually insane. Why did you accept?" Taijin moved closer to the grate. "Who are you?" "My name is Hyunwoo," the voice said. "I've been here for 3 months. They captured my mining ship and made me a maintenance worker. I fixed the arena equipment between matches. I've seen 70 fights since I got here. Nobody survives, nobody." "There's always a first time," Taijin said. Hyunwoo laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "You don't understand. The things they have in this arena, they're not natural. Round 1, they release wrathhounds. 6 of them. Each one weighs half a ton and has jaws that can bite through steel. Round 2 is worse. Round 3, they bring out a Scorval Apex. I've seen it kill a Threxian war champion in under 2 minutes. The Threxians have been fighting wars for 1,000 years and their champion died like it was nothing." "Tell me about the arena layout," Taijin said, ignoring the fear in Hyunwoo's voice. "What? Why does that matter? You're going to die anyway." "Maybe," Taijin said, "but I'm not going to die easy. Now tell me everything. How big is the arena? What's the floor made of? Are there any obstacles? Where do the creatures come from?" There was silence for a moment. Then Hyunwoo started talking. He described the arena in detail, the sand floor, the stone walls, the viewing galleries above, the gates where creatures entered, the old ventilation system that ran through the walls. He talked for almost an hour, telling Taijin everything he knew. When he finished, Taijin was quiet for a long time. "You have a plan, don't you?" Hyunwoo finally asked. "The beginning of one," Taijin admitted. He lay down on the metal bench, staring up at the ceiling. His body was tired, but his mind was racing. Velthun made a mistake. He thinks I'm just a cargo hauler, weak, stupid, easy prey. "Aren't you a cargo hauler?" "Yeah," Taijin said, and that dangerous smile came back. "But I grew up on Earth, outback Australia. You know what we did there before we went to space? We hunted not with big weapons or armor. We hunted by being smarter than everything trying to kill us, by lasting longer, by never giving up." He closed his eyes, forcing his body to relax. He would need all his strength tomorrow. "Get some sleep, Hyunwoo," he said quietly. "Tomorrow these aliens are going to learn something about humans. We don't fight fair. We fight to win." In his private booth high above the arena, Velthun watched the holding cell feeds on his screens. Next to him stood Jiwon, a human woman with scars on her arms and cold eyes. She had been his slave and advisor for 2 years, captured from a colony ship and kept alive because she was useful. "What do you think?" Velthun asked her, gesturing at the screen showing Taijin's cell. Jiwon watched the human sleeping on the metal bench. Something flickered in her eyes, too quick for Velthun to identify. "I think he'll die like all the others," she said carefully. Humans are weak, but inside, where Velthun couldn't see, something else was happening. For the first time in 2 years, Jiwon felt something she thought she had lost forever: hope. The arena gates opened with a sound like thunder. Taijin stepped out onto the sand and immediately felt the heat. Giant lights hung from the ceiling, making everything bright and hot. The sand under his boots was stained dark in places. He tried not to think about what had made those stains. Above him, thousands of aliens screamed and cheered. The viewing galleries wrapped around the entire arena in rising circles, packed with creatures from across the galaxy. Holographic screens floated everywhere, showing his face and vital signs. His heart rate, breathing, everything was on display for the entertainment of the crowd. Velthun's voice boomed through speakers built into the walls. "Welcome, honored guests, to another glorious match. Today we have a special treat, a human who thinks he can break our perfect record. Let us see how long his courage lasts." The crowd roared with laughter. Betting screens updated frantically. Taijin saw the numbers. 30 seconds was the average bet for his survival time. He ignored them all and focused on the arena. It was exactly as Hyunwoo had described. A circular space about 50 meters across with walls of old stone rising up about 10 meters before the viewing galleries began. The sand was loose in some places, packed hard in others. There were no weapons, no cover, nothing but open space. Across from him, 6 metal gates started to rise. The crowd's noise reached a fever pitch. "Round 1, Velthun announced. "The Wrath Hounds." 6 creatures burst through the gates and Taejin's blood went cold. They were massive, each one the size of a small car. Their bodies were covered in scales that looked like black glass. 4 legs, each ending in claws that dug into the sand. And their heads. Those were the worst part. Jaws full of teeth as long as his fingers, and eyes that glowed red in the arena lights. The Wrathhounds spread out immediately surrounding him. They were smart, pack hunters. They moved with perfect coordination, cutting off any escape route. The crowd was already screaming for blood. Taejin did something nobody expected. He ran. Not toward the walls, not toward the gates. He ran in a wide circle around the arena, keeping close to the edge. The Wrathhounds chased him immediately, their claws throwing up sprays of sand. They were fast, faster than any earth animal he had ever seen. But Taejin didn't try to outrun them. He just kept running, maintaining a steady pace. The crowd's laughter grew louder. They thought he was panicking, running scared. The betting screens updated. 15 seconds until the hounds caught him. But Taejin wasn't panicking. He was counting. 1 minute passed, then 2. He kept running, occasionally changing direction, forcing the hounds to adjust their pursuit. His lungs burned and his legs ached, but he kept going. 3 minutes. 4. The crowd's laughter started to fade, replaced by confused muttering. The Wrathhounds were still chasing, but something was changing. Their movements were getting slower. Their breathing was becoming labored, visible in the expansion and contraction of their rib cages. 5 minutes. 6. Taejin was tired, but he had trained for this his whole life without knowing it. Growing up in the Australian outback, he had learned to track animals for hours, sometimes days. Humans were persistence hunters. They couldn't run as fast as most predators, but they could run longer, much longer. The Wrathhounds were built for explosive speed and power. They were ambush predators designed to chase down prey in short bursts. But this human wouldn't stop running. Their bodies were overheating. Their muscles were filling with waste chemicals that made them slower and weaker. 7 minutes. The lead Wrathhound stumbled slightly. Taejin saw it and adjusted his strategy. He started running in tighter circles, making them work harder to keep up. He grabbed handfuls of sand as he ran, stuffing them into his pockets. 8 minutes. The crowd had gone almost silent now. This wasn't supposed to happen. The hounds were supposed to catch and kill the human in seconds. But the human was still running, and the hounds were visibly struggling. 9 minutes. Taejin stopped running. He turned to face the nearest Wrathhound, which was approaching slowly now, its tongue hanging out as it panted. Its red eyes still burned with hunger, but its body was exhausted. The hound gathered its remaining strength and lunged. Taejin waited until the last possible moment, then threw the sand directly into the creature's eyes and sensory organs. The Wrathhound's head jerked back, momentarily blinded. Taejin sidestepped and the creature crashed into the arena wall behind him with tremendous force. The impact stunned the hound. It slumped to the sand, dazed and confused. 1 down. 5 to go. The second hound attacked while Taejin was recovering his balance. This one was smarter, coming in low and fast. But it was also tired, and its movements weren't as precise as they should have been. Taejin dove to the side, rolling in the sand. The hound's jaws snapped shut on empty air. Before it could turn around, Taejin grabbed a loose rock from near the wall where the first hound had crashed. The impact had knocked several stones free. He threw the rock hard, hitting the second hound in the side of the head. It wasn't enough to seriously hurt the creature, but combined with its exhaustion, it was enough to make it stumble. Taejin kept moving, never staying still, always keeping the hounds off balance. He used every trick he knew. When they lunged, he dodged at the last second, making them crash into each other. When they tried to surround him, he broke through the weakest part of their formation. When they slowed down to catch their breath, he threw sand and rocks to keep them moving. 12 minutes. 3 of the Wrathhounds were down now, too exhausted to continue fighting. They lay in the sand, their sides heaving. The remaining 3 were still dangerous, but they were moving like they were stuck in mud. 15 minutes. Taijin's shirt was soaked with sweat. His legs felt like they were made of lead. But the hounds were worse. One of them collapsed while trying to chase him, its legs simply giving out. It tried to stand but couldn't. Its muscles had failed completely. The last two hounds tried a coordinated attack, coming at him from both sides. Taijin ran toward the arena wall, picked up speed, then jumped and pushed off the wall with one foot. He twisted in midair, barely clearing the jaws of one hound. He landed badly, rolling in the sand, but he was still moving. The two hounds crashed into each other, trying to follow him. They went down in a tangle of limbs and tails. 17 minutes. After round one began, all 6 wrathhounds lay in the sand. They weren't dead, just completely exhausted. Their bodies had pushed beyond their limits, trying to catch prey that simply wouldn't stop moving. Taijin stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard. Every muscle in his body screamed. But he was alive. He was standing. The arena was completely silent. Then one alien in the crowd started a slow clap. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the entire arena was shaking with noise. But this time, it wasn't laughter. It was something else. Respect, maybe. Or just shock. In his private booth, Velthun stared at the screen showing the arena floor. His claws dug into the armrests of his throne, leaving deep gouges in the metal. Next to him, Jiwan stood perfectly still, but her eyes were bright. "Impossible," Velthun hissed. "This is impossible. The Wrathhounds have never failed." The darkness inside the ventilation duct was absolute. Taijin couldn't see his hand in front of his face, but he could hear everything. The buzzing of thousands of Vex wasps filled the metal tunnel with sound that felt like it was drilling into his skull. He crawled forward, hands and knees scraping against corroded metal. The duct was barely wide enough for his shoulders. Behind him, the wasps poured through the opening like water through a broken dam. He could feel the wind from their wings on his back. A wasp landed on his leg. He felt the impact through his pants. Then the stabbing pain as its stinger punched through the fabric and into his calf muscle. Fire raced up his leg. The neurotoxin was already working, trying to paralyze him. He gritted his teeth and kept crawling. 2 more wasps found him. One stung his shoulder. Another got his hand. The pain was incredible, like being stabbed with red-hot needles. His vision started to blur at the edges. The toxin was spreading through his bloodstream. But Taijin had one advantage the wasps didn't expect. He was human, and humans had something special built into their biology that most species in the galaxy didn't have. The ability to adapt to almost any environment and keep functioning long after they should have collapsed. He forced his body to move. Forward. Always forward. The narrow duct meant the wasps couldn't swarm him all at once. They had to come at him 1 or 2 at a time. It was still too many, but it was better than being in the open arena where thousands could attack simultaneously. His hands touched something ahead, a junction. The duct split in 3 directions. Taijin took the left path, choosing randomly. Behind him, the swarm split up to follow all 3 paths. That helped. It divided their numbers. He kept crawling. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Time lost all meaning in the darkness. More stings, his back. His leg again, his neck. Each one added more toxin to his system. Each one made his body slower and heavier. But humans had another advantage. Their brains could override their bodies when necessary. Pain was just a signal. Exhaustion was just a feeling. He had a mission: survive. Everything else was secondary. The duct turned sharply upward. Taijin grabbed the edges and pulled himself up, climbing against gravity. His muscles screamed in protest. The toxin was making coordination difficult. He almost fell twice, but somehow kept his grip up and up. The wasps followed, but the vertical climb slowed them down. Their wings weren't as useful in the tight space. Taijin put more distance between himself and the swarm. His hand touched something different. Not metal, something smooth and cold. Glass or plastic. He felt around it carefully. It was a panel of some kind, maybe 30 centimeters across, and behind it he could feel air movement. Strong air movement, an exhaust port. It had to be. The station was in space, which meant it needed to vent atmosphere somewhere. This must be one of the exhaust systems. Taijin positioned himself carefully in the vertical shaft. He braced his back against one wall and his feet against the other. Then he started kicking at the panel. Once, twice, 3 times. The panel cracked on the fourth kick. The wasps were getting closer. He could hear them clearly now, filling the shaft below him. Maybe a dozen had already reached his position. He felt one land on his boot. He kicked the panel one more time with everything he had left. It shattered, and suddenly the air around him was moving. Fast. The exhaust port connected to a vent that led directly to space. When the panel broke, the pressure differential did the rest. Air rushed out of the duct system with tremendous force, sucking everything with it, including thousands of Vex wasps. Tae-Jin had braced himself for this moment. His back pressed against one wall, his legs locked against the other, his hands gripping anything he could find. The suction was incredible. It felt like invisible hands trying to rip him out of the shaft and throw him into space. The wasps had nothing to hold on to. They were pulled toward the exhaust port like leaves in a hurricane. Their wings were useless against the force. One by one, hundreds at a time, they were sucked out into the vacuum of space where they died instantly. The suction lasted maybe 20 seconds before emergency seals engaged somewhere deeper in the station. The airflow stopped abruptly. Tae-Jin hung in the darkness, gasping for breath in the thin air that remained. His lungs burned. The toxin was still working through his system, and now he was dealing with partial oxygen deprivation too. He needed to get back to the arena. Needed to show Velthun he had survived round 2. But his body wasn't responding properly anymore. The combination of exhaustion, neurotoxin, and oxygen deprivation had pushed him beyond normal human limits. So he went beyond normal human limits. He started crawling back down the shaft. Slowly, one hand, one knee, then the other hand, then the other knee. Mechanical movements. He didn't think about the pain or the exhaustion. He just moved. When he reached the horizontal duct, he followed it back to the junction, then followed the main duct toward the arena. Or at least he hoped it was toward the arena. His sense of direction was failing. Everything looked the same in the darkness. After what felt like hours, he saw light ahead. The opening to the arena. The grate he had torn free was a square of brightness in the darkness. He crawled toward it, and fell out of the opening, dropping 4 meters to land hard on the arena sand. The impact knocked what little air remained in his lungs out of his body. He lay there, unable to move, staring up at the bright lights. The crowd was making noise, but he couldn't understand what they were saying. Everything sounded like it was underwater. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself up to his hands and knees. Then to his feet. He swayed, nearly fell, but caught himself. Blood ran down his arms from the wasp stings. His legs could barely hold his weight, but he was standing. The arena was silent except for the distant hum of equipment. All the wasps were gone. The sand was empty. Tae-Jin looked up at Velthun's booth. Even from this distance, he could see the arena master standing at the railing, staring down at him. Tae-Jin raised one shaking hand and gave him a small wave. The crowd exploded. Aliens were standing on their seats, screaming and waving their various appendages. The betting screens had stopped updating. Nobody had programmed odds for a human surviving 2 rounds. In his booth, Velthun's tail was lashing back and forth so hard it was leaving dents in the metal floor. His claws had pierced completely through the railing he was gripping. Next to him, Ji-won stood with her hands clasped behind her back, but Tae-Jin could see something in her posture. Hope. Real hope. Medical bay. Velthun snapped. Take the human to the medical bay. Treat his wounds. I want him healthy for round 3. His technician stared at him in confusion. The arena master had never allowed medical treatment for fighters before. Now, Velthun roared. Guards ran into the arena and half-carried, half-dragged Tae-Jin through a side gate. They took him to a small medical facility hidden in the station's lower levels. A doctor, some kind of 6-legged insect creature with too many eyes, looked him over and made clicking sounds. The neurotoxin level in his bloodstream should have killed him 3 times over, the doctor said. How is he still conscious? Humans are stubborn, one of the guards said. They put Tae-Jin on a medical bed and started pumping antitoxin into his veins. The doctor worked quickly, treating the stings and giving him fluids to counter the dehydration. Within an hour, Tae-Jin could think clearly again. Within 2 hours, he could stand without swaying. They took him back to his cell. Hyunwoo was pressed against the ventilation grate waiting. You insane, magnificent fool, Hyunwoo said. You actually did it. You survived 2 rounds. 3 more to go, Tae-Jin said, lying down on the metal bench. His body was covered in bandages, but the antitoxin had done its job. He would survive. The third round is tomorrow at dawn, Yenwu said. They're giving you time to recover. The arena master wants you at full strength. Why? Because round 3 is the Scorval Apex, Yenwu said quietly. He wants you healthy so the kill will be more impressive. Taijin closed his eyes. He had seen videos of Scorval Apex predators during his travels. They were apex predators from a death world, creatures that sat at the top of their food chain, 4 meters tall, armored hide, claws that could cut through steel, and intelligent. Almost as intelligent as most sentient species. Tell me everything you know about it, Taijin said. Hyunwoo talked for hours. He had seen the apex fight 3 times. He described how it moved, how it hunted, its preferences and patterns. Taijin absorbed every detail, building a picture in his mind. When Hyunwoo finally stopped talking, exhausted, Taijin lay in the darkness and thought about what he had learned. The apex was strong and smart. It would be the hardest opponent yet. He couldn't outrun it like the Wrathhounds. He couldn't escape it like the Vex Wasps. He would need to outsmart it. And to do that, he needed to think like a human. Not like a warrior. Not like a predator. Like a human. Humans didn't win because they were strong. They won because they used tools. They modified their environment. They thought 3 steps ahead. Taijin smiled in the darkness. He had a plan. It was crazy. It probably wouldn't work, but it was better than nothing. And sometimes crazy plans were exactly what humans needed. Across the station in private luxury quarters, Velthun was meeting with his advisors. They were concerned. The human had survived 2 rounds. The betting pools were in chaos. Some aliens were starting to wonder if the arena's perfect record might actually be broken. We should kill him now, one advisor said. Before he becomes a problem. No, Velthun said. That would make me look weak. As if I was afraid of one small human. Tomorrow the apex will kill him. Slowly. Painfully. And everyone in the galaxy will see that humans are nothing special. Jiwan stood in the corner listening. She said nothing. But in her mind she was making plans of her own. She had been a prisoner for 2 years. She had learned to be patient. To wait for the right moment. And now, watching Taijin fight impossible odds and win, she realized that moment might be coming soon. The apex would either kill Taijin, or Taijin would find a way to survive. Either way, the arena was changing. The perfect record was cracking. And when things cracked, that's when you could break them completely. She would be ready. Dawn came to the Crimson Colosseum's artificial day cycle. The light slowly brightened from dim red to bright white. In his cell, Taijin opened his eyes and stood up. His body still hurt, but it was a distant pain now. Manageable. The antitoxin had done its job. He heard the guards coming before they arrived. Their footsteps echoed in the corridor. They opened his cell and gestured for him to follow. Time for round 3. The arena looked different in the artificial dawn light. The sand glowed orange and red as if it was on fire. Taijin walked out through the gates and felt the weight of 10,000 eyes watching him. The crowd was different today, quieter, more focused. They weren't here to watch an execution anymore. They were here to watch something they had never seen before, a human who refused to die. The betting screens still showed odds against him, but they had changed dramatically. Now it was only 50-1. Some aliens were actually betting on the human to survive. Velthun's voice boomed through the speakers. He sounded angry. Today we bring you something special. The creature you are about to witness has killed 47 opponents without receiving a single injury. It is intelligent. It is deadly. It has never failed. The largest gate in the arena wall started to rise. It was 3 times the size of the gates the Wrathhounds had used. The darkness beyond looked solid, like a physical thing. I give you the Scorval Apex. The creature that walked out of the darkness was nightmare made real, 4 meters tall, walking on powerful hind legs with smaller arms held close to its chest. Its hide was covered in overlapping plates of natural armor that looked like dark metal. The head was angular and streamlined, with eyes that glowed yellow. When it opened its mouth to taste the air, Taijin saw rows of teeth designed to tear through anything. But what scared him most was the intelligence he saw in those eyes. This wasn't just an animal. This was a thinking creature, a hunter that could plan and adapt. The apex saw him and went completely still. It was analyzing him just as he was analyzing it. Predator meeting prey. Except this prey had already survived 2 rounds, and the apex knew it. They circled each other slowly. Tae-jin kept his movements smooth and non-threatening. He wasn't trying to challenge the creature. Not yet. He was reading it, learning its patterns. The apex moved like liquid death. Each step was perfectly balanced. Its tail swayed slightly for counterweight. The claws on its feet dug into the sand with barely a whisper of sound. It was built for this. Born for this. Tae-jin's heart was pounding, but his mind was clear. During the night, he had mapped out every detail Hyunwoo had given him. He had thought about the arena layout, the old stone walls, the sand, the ventilation system he had crawled through, and most importantly, the lower levels. The machinery rooms that Hyunwoo had mentioned in passing. The apex stopped circling. It had made its assessment. This prey was small and weak. Time to end this. It attacked with terrifying speed. One moment, it was 5 meters away. The next, it was right in front of Tae-jin, claws extended, jaws opening wide. Tae-jin didn't try to run. He waited until the absolute last microsecond, then dropped flat to the sand and rolled. The apex's claws passed through the space where his head had been. The creature's momentum carried it forward several steps before it could stop. Tae-jin was already moving. He ran toward a specific section of the arena floor, a place he had marked in his mind during round 1. The section where he had noticed the sand was slightly different in color. Where it sat just a bit lower than the rest of the arena, the apex pursued, but it wasn't running at full speed. It was being cautious now. This prey had avoided its first attack. That almost never happened. Tae-jin reached the marked section and kept running. The apex followed, closing the distance. 5 meters. 4. 3. Tae-jin dove forward, landing and rolling on the far side of the marked area. The apex, focused on its prey, didn't notice the slight change in the sand beneath its feet until it was too late. The ancient arena floor had weak spots, places where centuries of fights and maintenance had damaged the stone foundation, places where the weight of the massive machinery below had created cracks and fractures. Tae-jin had guessed at the location of one such weak spot based on the sand's appearance. He guessed correctly. When half a ton of Scorval apex landed on the weakened floor at full speed, the stone gave way. The creature went through the floor with a crash that shook the entire arena. Sand and debris poured into the hole after it. Tae-jin didn't hesitate. He ran to the edge of the hole and jumped in after the creature. The crowd went insane. This wasn't supposed to happen. The arena floor never collapsed. But more than that, the human had jumped into darkness after one of the galaxy's most deadly predators. That was beyond insane. That was suicide. Tae-jin landed hard on a metal platform about 3 meters below the arena floor. His knees nearly buckled, but he stayed upright. Around him was a maze of machinery, pipes, hydraulic systems, and support structures. This was the arena's guts, the mechanical systems that operated the gates and obstacles and lighting. The apex had landed 10 meters away on a lower platform. The fall had surprised it, but not injured it. That armor was too good. The creature was already getting back to its feet, orienting itself in the darkness. But now Tae-jin had the advantage he needed. This wasn't the open arena anymore. This was a confined space with obstacles and shadows, and humans had evolved in caves and forests. They knew how to use cover, how to move through darkness. He ran, deeper into the machinery level, the apex following close behind. The creature was faster in open ground, but here it had to navigate around pipes and support beams. Its larger size became a disadvantage. Tae-jin squeezed through a gap between 2 massive hydraulic pistons. The apex tried to follow, but its shoulders were too wide. It had to go around, giving Tae-jin precious seconds. He kept moving, always heading in a specific direction. Hyunwoo had mentioned that the machinery room contained the main systems for arena operations. Somewhere down here was the power supply, the hydraulic press that reset arena obstacles, the gate controls. The apex roared, a sound that made the metal walls vibrate. It was getting frustrated. This small prey kept escaping, kept finding ways to avoid its attacks. The creature started, smashing through obstacles rather than going around them. Metal screamed as it tore support beams apart with its claws. Tae-jin found what he was looking for. A massive hydraulic press, easily 5 meters across, used to compress and move the arena's modular floor sections. It was currently in the raised position, creating a space underneath it, and beyond that space he could see the control panel. He ran for it. The apex saw him and charged, no longer caring about obstacles. It was going to catch this prey and end this humiliation. Tae-jin reached the control panel and started pressing buttons. He didn't know what most of them did, but that didn't matter. He just needed the apex to follow him into the right position. The creature burst through a cluster of pipes, hydraulic fluid spraying everywhere. It was 5 meters away, then 3. Then right on top of him, Tae-jin hit the largest red button on the panel and threw himself sideways, rolling under a support beam. The hydraulic press engaged. The massive weight began to descend with inexorable force. The apex realized the danger at the last second and tried to retreat. But the press was already too close. It moved with surprising speed for something so large. The creature tried to dart to the side but slipped on the hydraulic fluid that covered the floor. Its claws couldn't find purchase on the slick metal. The press came down. The apex roared once, a sound of pure rage and defiance. Then the press completed its cycle. Silence. Tae-jin lay under the support beam, breathing hard. His whole body was shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. He had just killed one of the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy. With a machine. Not with strength or speed or weapons, with a machine, because that's what humans did. They used tools. He crawled out from under the beam and looked at the hydraulic press. He couldn't see the apex anymore. The press had done its job. Now he needed to get back to the arena floor. He was supposed to win in the arena, not in the machinery rooms. If he didn't show himself, Velthun might claim he had died down here. He found a maintenance ladder and climbed. His arms felt like they were made of rubber, but he forced them to work. Up and up, through access tunnels, following signs that pointed toward arena maintenance. After 20 minutes of climbing and crawling, he found a hatch. He pushed it open and bright light flooded down. He pulled himself up through the hatch and stood on the arena sand. The crowd had been silent, waiting to see what would happen. When Tae-jin appeared alone without the apex, they understood. The betting screens went dark for a moment as the system tried to process what had happened. The human had won. Again. This time the crowd didn't cheer or scream. They stood in silence, staring at the small figure in the center of the arena. Some aliens were making gestures of respect common to their species. Others were simply stunned. In his booth, Velthun stood frozen. His yellow eyes were locked on Tae-jin. His claws were digging into his own palms, drawing blood. Next to him, Ji-won was smiling. Actually smiling. Impossible, Velthun whispered. This is impossible. The human used the arena against itself, Ji-won said quietly. He didn't fight the apex directly. He led it into a trap. That's what humans do. We think, we plan. We use everything around us as a weapon. Velthun turned to look at her. Really look at her. And for the first time he saw something in her eyes that scared him. She wasn't just a slave anymore. She was something else. Something dangerous. Round 4, he said hoarsely. We begin round 4 in 1 hour. No rest period. The rules say... One of his advisors began. I don't care about the rules. Velthun roared. This human has made a mockery of my arena. Round 4 begins in 1 hour. In the arena, guards approached Tae-jin carefully as if he might be dangerous now. They escorted him back to his cell. He was covered in hydraulic fluid and scratches from climbing through the machinery, but he was alive. Hyunwoo was waiting at the ventilation grate. Tae-jin, you need to listen to me carefully. Round 4 isn't like the others. What do you mean? Round 4 is psychological, Hyunwoo said. They don't just send in creatures. They test your mind, your will. They'll try to make you quit or make you do something you'll regret. What do they usually do? It varies, Hyunwoo said. Sometimes they make you choose between saving yourself and saving another prisoner. Sometimes they use mind-affecting chemicals. But the worst is when they bring in someone you know, someone you care about, and force you to fight them. Tae-jin's blood went cold. They wouldn't. They would, Hyunwoo said. The arena master is desperate now. You've survived 3 rounds. You've broken records. He'll do anything to make sure you don't survive round 4. Tae-jin sat down on his metal bench and put his head in his hands. He could handle monsters. He could handle death traps. But fighting another human? That was different. What do I do? He asked quietly. I don't know, Hyunwoo admitted. I've seen 3 fighters face round 4. 2 quit immediately and were killed by the guards. 1 fought and won, but the guilt destroyed him. He took his own life the next day. Tae-jin looked up at the ventilation grate, at the darkness beyond where Hyunwoo was hidden. If they bring you into that arena, Tae-jin said slowly, if they force us to fight, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Trust you how? I won't let Velthun win, Tae-jin said. Not this round. Not any round. Whatever happens, trust that I have a plan. Even if it looks like I don't. Even if it looks like everything is falling apart. Trust me. There was a long silence from the other side of the grate. Okay, Hyunwoo finally said. I trust you. An hour later, the guards came for Tae-jin again. The arena gates opened and Tae-jin walked out into chaos. The crowd was different today. They weren't just watching entertainment anymore. News had spread across the galaxy that a human had survived 3 rounds in the Crimson Coliseum. Ships were arriving at the station every hour, bringing spectators who wanted to witness history. Velthun's voice came through the speakers, but it didn't sound triumphant anymore. It sounded angry. Round 4 begins now. Today we test not the body, but the spirit. Another gate opened across the arena. Tae-jin's heart sank as he saw Dae-hyun walk through. Another human. Younger than Tae-jin, maybe 25 years old. His hands were shaking, but he kept his head up. The rules are simple, Velthun announced. 2 enter. 1 leaves. You have 10 minutes to decide who lives and who dies. If you refuse to fight, you both die, the crowd murmured. This was cruel even by arena standards, forcing members of the same species to kill each other. But Velthun didn't care about standards anymore. He cared about breaking the human. Tae-jin and Dae-hyun stood 10 meters apart, staring at each other. The arena was completely silent. Then Tae-jin started speaking. In Korean, fast and urgent, don't react to what I'm saying. Just nod like you understand the rules. Dae-hyun nodded slightly. The arena master thinks we'll fight each other or refuse and die. But he's wrong about humans. We don't turn on each other. We work together. Are you with me? Another small nod. Good. Start walking toward me like you're going to attack. Move slowly. Dae-hyun started walking forward, his fists clenched. To the crowd, it looked like he was preparing to fight. The arena has weaknesses, Tae-jin continued in Korean. I've been mapping them for 3 rounds. The ventilation system connects to everything. The machinery rooms are accessible. The emergency containment protocols are automated. If we can trigger a full lockdown, we can change the rules of this entire game. They were 5 meters apart now. Dae-hyun was moving in what looked like attack patterns, but he was actually positioning himself based on Tae-jin's quiet directions. When I give the signal, run for the west wall. There's a maintenance panel 3 meters up. Behind it is the emergency system controls. Can you hotwire electrical systems? Yes, Dae-hyun said, still moving like he was circling for an attack. Good. I'll create a distraction. You get that panel open and trigger a full station lockdown. Override code is usually red wire to green wire on systems this old. What's the distraction? You'll know it when you see it. They were 2 meters apart now. Close enough that the crowd was leaning forward, expecting violence. Instead, Tae-jin shouted in English loud enough for the translators to pick up. I won't kill another human. This arena can't make me. Then he ran. Not toward Dae-hyun. Toward the wall. Toward the section where the Vex Wasps had emerged from underground. Velthun was on his feet immediately. Stop him. Release the backup creatures. But Tae-jin was already moving. He grabbed a piece of debris from where the floor had collapsed during round 3 and threw it at the covered pit entrance. The cover cracked. He hit it again. And again, alarms started blaring. The crowd was shouting in confusion. Guards began running toward the arena entrances. Dae-hyun used the chaos to sprint to the west wall. He found the maintenance panel and tore it open. Behind it was a mess of wires and circuits, old technology but functional. He started pulling wires looking for the red and green ones. Tae-jin smashed through the cover of the pit. Below was darkness and the sound of angry creatures waking up. These were the reserve monsters kept for emergencies. He had no idea what they were. He just needed chaos. He found a support beam and used it to jam the pit door in a partially open position. Creatures started climbing out. Some looked like the Wrathhounds. Others were different. Things with too many legs and mouths that opened the wrong way. The arena descended into pandemonium. The creatures were supposed to be released in controlled groups, but now they were just flooding out randomly. The crowd started screaming. Some were trying to leave their seats. Velthun was roaring orders at his guards, but nobody could hear him over the alarms and crowd noise. In the middle of this chaos, Jiwan made her move. She had been waiting for this moment for 2 years. While Velthun was focused on the arena disaster, she grabbed his personal communication device and locked the doors to his booth from the inside. "What are you doing?" Velthun turned to stare at her. "Something I should have done a long time ago," Jiwan said. She pressed a button on the communication device. "Attention all arena prisoners and maintenance workers. This is G1. Emergency Protocol 7. The booth is locked. The master is contained. Take the station." Across the Crimson Coliseum, humans who had been forced into slavery started moving. Hyunwoo left his maintenance station and opened the holding cells. Other humans grabbed tools and started disabling guard stations. They had been waiting for this. Planning for this. They just needed someone to give them hope that it was possible. Tae-jin had given them that hope. In the arena, Dae-hyun found the red and green wires. He touched them together and every containment door in the station slammed shut. Full lockdown. Nobody could get in or out of any section without override codes. Velthun's booth was sealed. He was trapped inside with Jiwan. The arena was sealed. Tae-jin and Dae-hyun were trapped inside with about 20 confused creatures and several very nervous guards. But the guards were on the wrong side of their own security system. And they were outnumbered. Tae-jin grabbed one of the support beams he had been using. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. Dae-hyun, we need to herd the creatures toward the guard stations. They ran through the chaos using noise and movement to direct the confused monsters. The creatures were angry at being woken up and were attacking anything that moved. The guards tried to fight back, but they weren't prepared for this. They were used to controlling everything from safe positions. Now they were trapped in the same arena as the monsters. One by one, the guards fell, not dead, just unconscious or too injured to fight. The creatures lost interest once the guards stopped moving and started trying to find ways out of the sealed arena. Tae-jin and Dae-hyun were the only ones still actively moving. The creatures left them alone, sensing they weren't threats. Above the arena in his sealed booth, Velthun was trying to override the lockdown. But Jiwan had taken his communication device and broken it. He couldn't access the systems anymore. "You've doomed yourself," Velthun hissed at her. "When my guards break through, I'll make sure you suffer." "Your guards aren't coming," Jiwan said calmly. She gestured at the booth's windows. Outside, they could see humans moving through the station corridors. They were organized now, working together, taking control of key systems. "Humans don't fight like your species," Jiwan said. "We don't have the biggest claws or the strongest armor. We don't have venom or the ability to breathe fire, but we have something better. We work together, we plan, we never stop thinking of ways to win." She walked to the booth's main control panel and started typing. "I'm broadcasting this conversation to the entire galaxy. Every species that's been watching this arena, they're going to hear what I have to say." She activated the booth's communication system. Her face appeared on screens across the station and across millions of ships watching the broadcast. "My name is G1. For 2 years I was a slave in the Crimson Coliseum. I watched hundreds of beings die for entertainment. I watched the galaxy applaud as innocent beings were murdered. And I stayed silent because I thought there was no hope." She turned to look at Velthun. Then a human cargo hauler named Tae-jin refused to give up. He survived 4 rounds. He changed the rules. And he showed me that we were never powerless. We just needed someone to stand up first. In the arena below, Tae-jin heard his name broadcast across the station. He looked up at the booth and saw Jiwan's face on the screens. "The Crimson Coliseum is finished," Jiwan continued. "The humans have taken control of the station. The so-called arena master is locked in his booth, and the galaxy is watching. So now I ask you, what kind of galaxy do you want to live in? One where strength means the right to murder for entertainment? Or one where intelligence and cooperation matter?" The broadcast ended. Silence fell across the station. Then, from the ships surrounding the Crimson Coliseum, responses started coming in. Some species sent messages of support. Others were outraged that their entertainment was being taken away. But one message mattered most. A human peacekeeping fleet was already on its way. They had been monitoring the situation. They would arrive within 3 hours. In the arena, Tae-jin sat down heavily on the sand. His body was past exhaustion. He had survived 4 rounds, changed the entire dynamic of the arena, started a revolution, and somehow, impossibly, he was still alive. Dae-hyun sat down next to him. So what now? Now we wait for the fleet, Tae-jin said. And we make sure everyone gets home. Over the next 3 hours, the humans consolidated their control of the station. They released all the prisoners, not just humans, but dozens of other species that had been captured for the arena. They secured the armories and locked down the command centers. They did it all without killing anyone. The guards were restrained but not harmed. When the human peacekeeping fleet arrived, they found the Crimson Coliseum in complete human control. The commander of the fleet, a woman named Bora, walked into the arena and found Tae-jin still sitting on the sand, too exhausted to stand. "You started quite a situation here," Bora said. "Didn't mean to," Tae-jin said. "Just wanted to survive." "Well, you did more than survive. The Galactic Confederacy is in an uproar. Half the species are calling you a terrorist. The other half are calling you a hero. There's going to be hearings, trials, new laws. What about Velthun? He'll face justice. Real justice this time. Not arena justice." Bora helped Tae-jin to his feet. "Come on, let's get you to medical. You've earned some rest." As they walked out of the arena, Tae-jin looked back at the sand one last time. 4 rounds. He had survived 4 rounds. One more and he would have broken the record completely. But he didn't regret how things had turned out. This was better. Not just one human surviving. Everyone surviving. The Crimson Coliseum was dismantled over the following months. The structure was broken apart and the pieces scattered across space. Some became monuments. Others became warnings. The betting systems were shut down permanently. Velthun was tried by the Galactic Confederacy and sentenced to life imprisonment on a neutral station. He never ran another arena. Ji-won became a human ambassador, using her knowledge of galactic politics to help build better relationships between species. She made sure that what happened at the Crimson Coliseum could never happen again. Hyunwoo joined Tae-jin's cargo crew. They hauled freight across the galaxy, but they also carried freed prisoners home. It became their mission, finding beings who had been taken by slavers or arenas and bringing them back to their families. Dae-hyun opened a training facility, not for combat, for survival. He taught beings of all species how humans think, how they solve problems, how they refuse to accept defeat even when defeat seems certain. And Tae-jin went back to being a cargo hauler, but the galaxy remembered him. When ships passed each other in the void between stars, crews would sometimes share the story. The story of the human who looked at an arena that allowed no survivors and said, "Challenge accepted." The arena declared no survivors. The human changed the rules, and in doing so changed the galaxy, because that's what humans do. They don't accept the world as it is. They change it into what it should be. One challenge at a time.